HowExpert presents When You Can't Fix It, Start Fresh by Nicholas Kelly. In early 2020, I knew what my life had been and would be for the rest of my life. I was in a marriage that I knew wasn't fulfilling, but it was safe and comfortable, and we were financially stable. I had a close relationship with my parents, who had always made sure to keep up with what was going on with me and help me through anything. I was a stay-at-home parent, and I thought there wasn't anything more that life had to offer me. Then COVID hit, and the cracks began to show. My always reliable mother was suddenly critical to excess. She refused to see me unless I was willing to bleach my groceries before bringing them into my house, and would call just to tell me I was hurting her by not obeying her instructions. I was on the verge of a mental breakdown, and told her that every time we spoke. She never listened. She would cut me off to talk about family drama and how excited she was to visit my sister across the country. Something she deemed more important and worth risking her health than helping me with my mental health. During this time, I also began to see the problems with my friendships. They were all shallow, and the less time I spent around dozens of people every day, the more I realized the me at home was nothing like the me I was with them. To get my mind off things and to help me deal with what I was going through, I decided to finally, for the first time, write a book. I'd been wanting to for a decade and hadn't made the time for it, but being stuck at home because of a pandemic seemed like the perfect opportunity. I went from first draft to self-published in 2 months and began integrating into an online community of authors and writers and readers on Twitter. They welcomed me with open arms, but there was still a sense of emptiness in the friendships I was building. Until I met her. Eleanor reached out to me first. She wanted to have a small support group for people trying to pitch their books to agents and publishers, and I was excited about the upcoming event on Twitter, so I accepted. I read her manuscript, which was one of the best books I've ever read to this day, and we began to develop a friendship I can only describe as being written in the stars. I felt like she knew me better than anyone else I'd ever known. She could see through every mask I tried to put on, and even more than I could myself, she saw the cracks in the life I thought was built to last. Within 2 months of friendship, she gave me the eyes to see my toxic relationship with my husband, my shallow, unfulfilling friendships, the slow-burning misery that my life and lack of purpose had instilled in me, and possibly the hardest to accept, the fact that my mother, who had grown steadily more critical and cold over the months, was a narcissist and had been emotionally abusing me my whole life without me realizing it. Even better than simply opening my eyes, Eleanor, who had become the most trusted person in my life, tried to help me repair things with my husband, with my friends, and with my mom. We began writing a book together, and through the process became even closer. Things finally came to a head in November when I sat down with my husband, and we decided that our marriage was serving neither of us, and that we were going to get a divorce. That was when the cracks began to break away, and the illusion of comfort and happiness I always had crumbled. My mother, who had been growing progressively more critical and nasty, would call just to insult my new haircut, or to tell me that I was abandoning her, all the while inviting my ex over to her house for lunch. I leaned heavily on Eleanor, and soon discovered that I was in love with her in a way that I didn't know could actually happen in real life. We began seeing each other via the internet since we lived thousands of miles apart. I went to tell my parents, and found out that my ex had already found out, and had been talking about my new relationship with them. The closer I got to Eleanor, the more my other friends began to pull away, uncomfortable with me leaving behind my American dream life in the pursuit of my own happiness. They would call just to yell at me for not giving them the attention they deserved while I navigated a toxic separation, a new love, and the betrayal of my family. With nothing left for me in the community I painstakingly integrated myself into for years, I packed my bags and moved across the country to Eleanor. Things haven't been easy. We were still a new couple when we moved in together, and I was still dealing with custody battles and toxic, hateful letters from my mom about the things I owed her for raising me. I hadn't worked in years and had little in the way of job prospects since my degree was in a subject that required a graduate degree in order to be useful. But Eleanor was endlessly supportive, and I found that, with her, I wasn't smothered like I was in my previous relationship. I was free to grow, and she was willing to help me. She helped me improve my writing and helped me to find a literary agent for my work. And she spent hours and days and weeks helping me discover options for a career. Now I'm applying to law school. My first book has over 1,500 copies sold. My son is happy and healthy and thriving. Even my ex and I have managed to bury the hatchet. My mental health is on the upswing for the first time I can ever remember. And the love of my life has been my cheerleader through it all. If you'd asked me 2 years ago if I could leave everything I loved and cared about behind without a backward glance, if I could move away from the beach into the mountains for a fresh start, if I could cut ties with every friend and relative I had, I'd have thought you were insane. But that's the thing about starting over. You can't start over if you're still clinging to the past. You need a clean slate and an open mind. I was 32 when I walked away from a life that was holding me back from becoming my best self. I have a long way to go, but I never would have made it this far if I was still being shackled to reminders of the old me. I moved on, and I'm moving forward. And if I can do it, anyone can. HowExpert publishes how-to guides and real stories by everyday people. Visit HowExpert.com to learn more.